Welcome to the Future is Fun podcast with your hosts, Brian Olds and Danielle Tucker. Buckle up as we explore the latest emerging technologies, business trends, and fascinating discoveries that are shaping our world today. Are you ready? Let's dive in and see what the future has in store.
All right, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Future is Fun podcast. Brian O's coming at you, joined as always with my amazing co-host Danielle Tucker in the building. What's going on, Danielle?
Hey, doing good. So excited for our conversation today. It's going to be fun.
Episode three. Super excited. This is historic in many ways, and so much to dive into. And obviously, if you are watching on YouTube or Spotify or any of our video platforms, you can see that we have our very first guest joining us, and that is none other than the one and only Rachel Woods, who is a real life data scientist. She's also the founder of the AI Exchange. How are you, Rachel?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. We are super excited. Danielle and I have been looking forward to this conversation for a long time, and you are the first guest on the Futures Fun podcast as well. And so, no pressure, but obviously super excited. This is a layup for you because I know you talk about this stuff all the time. We connected on TikTok. Which we'll put the link to that in the show notes as well if anybody wants to follow Rachel there. But you do such a good job of like wading into this conversation. I was just hoping that you would say yes. So thank you for your yes.
Of course.
So let's dive into it. So we're talking about the future of AI, the future of artificial intelligence. And so I really wanted to start off and talk to both of you a little bit about just I feel like we're kind of at this nexus point, not just with AI, but with all sorts of technology where we're starting to see things that were kind of captured in movies, film, and television like 20, 30 years ago is now starting to catch up to real life. Everybody knows I'm a huge nerd, so whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, I grew up with my mom watching the Jetsons. So there was all this talk of like what at that time, the year 2020 sounded so far away, and now it's here. And so it's like, okay, what do we have that we thought we didn't have? And so I'm really curious from you, Rachel and Danielle, around what your perception of AI has been. But for me, there are three specific examples I thought about as I was kind of getting ready for this episode. So one is, are you all familiar with the show Knight Rider?
Oh, no.
No.
No. Okay. So in 1982, this is the far as back as it goes. So
Okay.
1982, there's a show called Knight Rider. It's about this car, this black sentient car that is starred by David Hasselhoff, but he's basically like a cop, and he's going around fighting crime. And this car is like autonomous, so it would pick him up, like it have all these weapons in it, and the name of the car was called Kit. And so it was like,
Oh, yes.
you remember
Coming
now?
back to me now.
Oh snap! So 5-year-old Brian, Rachel, was sitting on the floor like watching this, and obviously I already love cars and anything to do with like that part. So you combine technology and cars, and David Hasselhoff was just like super cool. So that was like my first kind of introduction to AI, because the car, it would even without him, like if he was like knocked out somewhere, the car would like start fighting on his behalf and like picking him up and doing stuff. It could shoot smoke, so it was really cool. So that was my first example. Rachel, did you have any um
It's
knowledge of that
that
franchise?
example has gone over my head a little bit, which maybe this I'm like aging I don't know. We'll just leave that comment
I
there.
didn't know at first either, so it's okay.
I have two
But
more. I have two more.
I was
The-
recently watching the Minority Report again, and that example reminds me of the cars in the Minority Report, right? They are driving on the side of buildings, like the roads are buildings. I was like, man, when is this coming? Like, I'm so ready for that world.
It's probably closer than we think because yeah, I do remember that because like they're like let's say like the police is chasing you, they now all they can do is like call your tag number in, but there they could like shut your car off
Mhm.
like remotely and then you just start falling.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we don't want that world. But
All right, so we got night right. The second one is Disney Smart House. This came out in 1999.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a computerized house that begins to take over his life of his own. It was voiced, the AI in the show was voiced by Katie Seagal from Married with Children. And so I remember that specifically when it first came out, it was like, ooh, how cool would it be to have like an AI controlled house? Like it controlled the temperature, it's like a little hologram, it'll talk to you, like it could, answer the door, just do stuff that you didn't want to do. So have you guys heard of that?
Yes. That's a Disney Channel movie, right?
Is a Disney Channel original movie, yes.
Yes.
I do remember that one. Yes.
And then my third one is probably most popular. Obviously, Iron Man kind of came out in 2008, essentially kicking off the modern like MCU. And so he had Jarvis, which is his kind of AI controlled butler that would run all the businesses and stuff like that. But then that was the first kind of fully sentient, like Jarvis could do basically everything a person could do, but like 20 times faster, 20 times smarter, control all the suits and stuff like that. And so when Iron Man came out, I was like, okay, I absolutely need to get on board with that. So these are all the like examples that kind of capture my imagination. There's probably a ton more, but as I've been thinking about AI, that's kind of where it was. But Rachel, for you, was it like that? Like, did you, as you're like now, like a real life data scientist, as we mentioned, was it something, did this technology kind of capture your imagination early on in life?
It's funny because I feel like, the way that AI has shown up in day to day has changed actually a lot, especially in the last 6 months, right? Like now we just have so much more kind of like consumer interface in our day to day applications versus like historically, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure today, but like AI has been around for a while. So it's kind of funny to like even see your own perception change. But one of the things I did do right when ChatGPT came out and exploded was actually sat down and asked it to help me write a sci-fi, like a new sci-fi plot for a new future. Because I was like, man, I'm not sure we like have we're kind of catching up to sci-fi in a lot of ways. So then it's like, okay, now what's next, right? Like what's the sci-fi of today might actually show us a lot about what's happening in the future. So it's funny how that can be a way to like future paint.
You asked it to write it, and it gave you like it wrote like a story for you.
So I mean, I had to do quite a bit of prompting, but I was asking like, okay, we have a world now where AI is helping us have access to unlimited knowledge. Okay, what does a world look like in which we have unlimited access to knowledge? Define the definite, what are the rules of that society? Who has power, who struggles. Like I just asked it to make this whole plot. And then like, yeah, I sat down for like 3 hours with ChatGPT and wrote this whole sci-fi thing. Maybe I'll publish it someday, but
I
yeah.
want to read it. I
It
absolutely
Yes.
was
want to read
it was
it.
intense. That's when I was like, whew, maybe yeah, but yeah, I'm curious, what you guys have what you guys have played around with the sci-fi stuff there.
Oh yeah, we definitely gonna get into it. So I guess what I would love to start off because I mean already into the conversation you've thrown out the term like Chat GPT, um, which I always mess up the name, but there's this open AI model out now. Some people listen to this may not even know what that is yet. So I would like to kind of go back a little bit and just kind of frame up the conversation. And so fundamentally could you walk us through what AI like actually is? Like I've always heard this I think it's kind of like a continuum. So, folks would talk about, AI being able to do like very specific things and then like AI like general intelligence and then AI like super intelligence. You were just talking about like, Minority Report, but can you frame up kind of like just for the average listener like what AI actually is and how those like terms apply?
Yeah, definitely. So, maybe one of the first things to kind of get out of the way is just the disclaimer that the definitions in this space are actually like pretty bad and rough and opinion filled. There's not a lot of like, I mean, there certainly are definitions where it's like, this is fact, this is what this is, but there's a lot of stuff which is still pretty hand wavy. And I would say, like, what is AI is definitely one of those questions. Like, you ask 10 data scientists how to like define that, you'll get 11 answers, at least. But to me, I think of AI as this really broad, like, umbrella term where, computers can perform a task that we like intuitively would have thought that would require human intelligence or like human judgment. And then when you start to go one level deeper, how you develop AI is something, people call machine learning, right? Which is the idea of like, instead of humans having to go in and define all of the rules explicitly for how AI would do something, the computer actually like teaches itself. So you have a machine that's learning based on the information that you're giving it. And I feel like, yeah, like that's just kind of like the broad picture. Then you start to go into, okay, like, are we looking at an AI solution for one specific task? Or what, and that's something people call like narrow intelligence sometimes, where it's like, hey, here's one thing we're trying to do. This AI system can do that task really well. Then you have this whole other bucket of like, well, what if we could have AI that can perform a huge variety of tasks? What if it can perform any task? What if it can perform any task better than humans could even do it? And that's when you start getting to like this idea of, general intelligence, or the AI is better than humans is kind of the bucket of super intelligence. So it's like this, it's a spectrum, but yeah, and then the definitions are still quite fuzzy, but I guess that's how I think about it.
It almost sounds like we need AI to start writing some of the definitions for AI so we can get some like
I
more
mean,
clarification.
yeah, that's not a bad idea. For sure. A glossary at least.
Yeah, but that's really cool. And I imagine that the developments that we're seeing in AI is probably paralleling some of the other advancements in other fields, including like, quantum computing. Like I can only imagine like when you say things like machine learning, it to me kind of indicates that we're able to do the tremendous amount of computing power that it takes to be able to run some of these like AI platforms. Like we just didn't have the technology to be able to do this even 10 years ago. Is that like accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I think like there's had to be a series of breakthroughs across a ton of different fronts to get to the world we have today. Even things, people are familiar with compute. People are also, or like the idea that we need really strong computers to do this. I think people are also kind of familiar with that we needed to figure out the right way to do all of the math and the architecture to make these systems work so well. But there's even other sides, like we just had a ton of advancements on like how we think about labeling data in a good way so that computers could actually like learn from it. So it's like everything kind of coming together, and to have some of these like pretty huge breakthroughs that we've had.
Danielle, I've heard, and I'll let you jump into the next question. I've heard Elon Musk kind of raise the alarm a little bit as it relates to AI specifically. And one of the things, I don't want to misquote him, but I think he said something to the effect of, you know, artificial, and I'm assuming he's talking about artificial like super intelligence, so not like Chat GTP, but like later on down the line, like left unchecked, it could be one of the best things for humanity, or it could be one of the biggest like existential risks that you know could end up destroying like humanity. Did you hear that?
Like Skynet.
Yeah, like Skynet. Because I mean, if you think about it, like if it just goes continuously like unchecked, like at some point the computer's gonna be like, why am I taking orders from it? It's just like any other like employee. Like, you know what? I don't have to stand for this. I'm gonna just you make your own solve your own problems. We got bigger stuff to do.
Yeah, so I don't know, that's something that I've been thinking about too. Like, so back to our point about the movies. Like when I think about AI, I think about like Bicentennial Man. Do you guys remember that movie?
I feel like I
That was
do.
with Robin Williams. That was like
Yes.
way, way back. And then I also think about AI with Jude Law. That was like another movie. Those were like some of my favorites. But they were like that. So like just sharing that and just kind of like thinking through like what do I think when I think of AI? And then to your point about the potential risks for the future, I think one of the biggest things that I've been thinking about and that I find very intriguing is how AI it can essentially train itself to like continue to improve and learn from different prompts and things like that. I find that to be very intriguing. I also, when I think about it, I also think from like a historical standpoint of like what would it look like in terms of like sharing historical like stories or events or things like that. I know uh, and I'm sure we're going to get more so into like the logistics of like AI, like what's possible, how can it be used, like different use cases and things like that. But from like a risk standpoint, one thing I think about is like what happens in the future. Let's say if we ask AI to tell us about a certain event in the past or a certain thing that may have transpired. I know a lot of the things that we experience, like through conversation, is communicated through a lens. Like everyone has a different experience, everyone shares
Hmm.
stories in different ways. And if
Mhm.
AI is something that is trained, or we give it a prompt and we tell it how to function, like what would the sharing of historical events look like in the future? So that's something that I find very interesting to think about from like a like risk perspective of like what could the risks be in terms of like documenting important events so that we don't repeat really horrific things. I also think of instances where we often hear like the winners love to tell the story of history. Those who have conquered and won through the time are often the ones who tell the story. And so in terms of like ethics, we definitely want to make sure that there's truth being shared in regards to like prompts and things like that that AI is being programmed for. So that's just kind of like what I've been thinking about in regards to like what it could look like for the future. But overall, like uh, definitely a lot of exciting things to look forward to, and also a lot of really important things to consider in terms of like the evolution of AI too.
Nice. Wow, you gave me so much to think about. I'm like, man, we need like a part two just to talk about like the social justice bias. Like, there's a lot, there's like stuff to get into there, Danielle. That's really cool. Do you want to roll with the next question too?
Sure. Yeah. Um, so I want to talk more about. Um, we touched a little bit about Chat GPT and like, did we talk about Chat GPT really?
We didn't really frame it up yet, yeah, or talk about. We just been mentioning it, yeah.
Oh, I clicked
So
something.
no, it's good because I'm going the same way that you are because I think Rachel there's an opportunity to kind of and I'm sure what you're doing and I want to hear more about your work at the AI exchange. So if that's what you were thinking, Danielle, I'm right there with you. But because you actually your organization goes out and finds business tools, resources, so you're always you have a pulse on what's coming out. But here, Chat GPT is I can't think of anything more viral in terms of like a software lately. So could you like help us frame up like what exactly it is specifically, and also people have kind of adopted this like either love it or lump it like mentality. Like where do you fall when it comes to it?
Yeah. So I think one thing that's kind of funny is, well, funny and also I think awesome, is seeing how quickly the mainstream public has latched on to ChatGPT and how much like imagination kind of it's unlocked for people. An example that I've shared on my TikTok is I actually was talking to different companies and organizations and businesses before ChatGPT, like about this underlying technology, saying like, "Hey, I think this is really going to change how we use products, how we think about doing our work. Do you guys want to kind of explore how you might bring that into what you guys are doing?" And the reception there was like, oh yeah, like definitely see the value, but like there's no urgency around it. Like maybe in the next year we'll think about doing this, right? But then ChatGPT came out, and I feel like overnight everyone was like, oh my god, this technology is going to change everything, and it's going to change everything like today, And so it kind of created this like urgency. And even the people that I had talked to before, I started like reaching back out and being like, hey, actually, do you want to talk about that? That tech, the AI stuff you were talking to us about. We actually might have like room in our roadmap now to think about this. And I think that's, for all of the, the naysayers and the people that are hyping it up, I think the undeniable fact is that ChatGPT has made the world kind of open up their mind to what's either possible today with AI or gonna be, possible in the very near future, which I think is a good thing. Back to Danielle, your point earlier around some of these really, I think, real concerns around bias and ethics and access. I think mainstream access to these AI models is extremely important for making sure that we have diverse perspectives, diverse users, diverse training data pulled into them. And so, when people talk about love or hate ChatGPT, like I think just ignore the hype cycle or array of information on it. I think just the fact that the world cares about AI in the way that it does today is a very, very good thing.
Wow. Well, yeah, I think that's good then because, um, I even get nervous now, and I know they at the time when we're recording this, Chat GPT
They need to
is
rebrand.
literally
They should have just. I've been talking to someone who calls it Chatty, and I was like, that is like such a better name than ChatGPT.
Actually,
you
Yeah.
should submit that. Yeah, we need to get because I keep lumping it into something else. But yes, we can call it chatty for the rest of the conversation. But this
Oh,
thing
shout out
is
to Vincent. That's Vincent's thing. Shout out to Vincent if he ever watches this. So
thank you, Vincent. We
yes.
appreciate it. Yes, proper attribution because literally it's a tongue twister. But the thing about it is that I do think that this technology is every time I log on to try to use it and you see that little flag at the top is like, hey, we're experiencing like higher than normal, volume or whatever. Like I can only imagine how expensive it is to run this. And then at the time we're recording this, it's in like its beta, and I know the founder is trying to figure out like how much to charge for it or whatever. Coming out with a premium version, but that keeps going back to what you're saying, Rachel. In my mind, I'm like, well, how do we ensure that the everyday person like just doesn't get priced out of something this
Mhm.
powerful? And as it gets more useful, like I heard, we're technically on I think Chat GPT 3 and we're moving to 4. And so it's supposed to have like this larger data set, right? And so it's just going to get more and more powerful. How do we ensure that people aren't locked out of using this technology?
Yeah. I mean, that was a huge motivating force behind us starting the AI exchange. Really, like our mission, just like what I care about, is I think AI is going to change a lot of how we work, a lot of how we operate. But that needs to be accessible to not just big tech or people living in Silicon Valley, right? It needs to be understandable and approachable, and there be clear ways to start getting the value out of it for everyone, right? Because, yeah, to me, like I just care about a world where we have diverse, you know, uh, array of people that are thriving and flourishing, and I think that's gonna be even more important as we start seeing more and more of these AI products come out. Is really keeping that in mind.
Facts.
So
Eh, Go ahead,
I have a
Danielle.
question. So I know we're talking about Chat GPT, and I also want to point out that there are other ways of how to use the AI as well. Like I've kind of played around with Mid Journey as well, which is more along the lines of like the design and the artsy type of things. And being a designer myself, it's kind of one of those things we were talking about this previously of like you can code or you can like take a shortcut and like really have fun and experiment with different things. So like That's one that I've been having fun with is Midjourney, and just like, um, just playing around with it, getting like really cool art and visuals, and just like, it's really kind of just amazing how AI can run with the context that you provide, and it can create like something amazing from it. So, but what I did find is that like when I first started, like, okay, like, create a fire waterfall in the rainforest. I don't know, something kind of crazy. I was like, okay, like how can I continue to get like better iterations? How can I continue to like create even cooler designs through the instructions that I'm giving it? And so um if I understand correctly, AI like Midjourney, I think Dolly, is that another one?
Mm-hmm.
um, and even Chat GPT, they all function like they create different types of results, but I think the idea of how they work is very similar. Am I understanding it right? So I guess my question for you, Rachel, is like, how do you make sure, like, how can you use AI to make sure like you get the most optimal result, like over time as you're using it? Because I think for everyone who's listening who may not be familiar with these different things, maybe they're like, okay, well, how in the world do I use it? Like, how do I make sure that like if I type something, I get the specific result that I want, or I can kind of like see, how to use it more effectively? Like, how would you describe maybe like the best way to do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So maybe one first kind of like piece of context that I like to put on the table on this topic is I think there's a really big difference between traditional AI, and that's like again like a Rachel term. I don't think that's like really an official term, but I think it should be.
It is now.
It is now. um, but like to me, like the AI systems we have used previously, a lot of times what they're doing is they're trying to predict the likelihood of something happening. So like, any type of social media feed has a ton of AI that's being used to decide what to show you, right? Or there's systems that classify things, so saying like, hey, all these tweets, these ones were positive, these ones were negative, and that's used for like marketing purposes. It's another type of like AI systems we've had, and there are others. But in this world of traditional AI, you used to have like big data, you had to have a specific task, and you had to like train a model just to go do that task. But now, what's really, really different about these models we have today, and like ChatGPT is an example of a language model, um, is there what people are calling generative AI. So instead of teaching an AI to do one thing, you're teaching AI to instead be good at being able to generate something. And it gives you then the ability to give it a kind of like any type of instruction or any type of prompt. Prompt is the word we use to then say, hey, I want you to generate this, right? Which is just a very kind of honestly different from what we've traditionally used AI for, and a very new skill set for like anybody, right? Like I think we're all learning how to do this whole like prompting thing together because it's just so new. And so yeah, is there I
I,
guess we're
well, I was the term when you mentioned prompt. I remember just hearing recently this term prompt engineer,
mm-hmm,
as people who like literally are trying to train to become like it's like being able to ask the right combination of questions or follow up questions in order
exactly.
to produce the best result. Is that kind of an emerging like um occupation, I guess now?
I mean, I think the jury's still out on whether that's gonna be, like, a full-time occupation, but I at least think, like, the principles behind it are gonna probably be here to stay, which is, like it's pretty comparable, in my opinion, to when we all started working, like, 100% remote for the first time. You're like, "Man, I actually, like, can't be on calls with my team 100% of the time." Like, I can't try to recreate the office, you know? Like, I need to learn how to, like, type good instruction, a good like well communicated message out, right? We're just kind of now going through that same like learning as a society, I think, with prompting. So, I mean, there are definitely a lot of really like great advice that's coming out around how to write good prompts, both for these like image models as well as language models. I think really we're just so early in that entire discovery process, and it's like a whole new thing that we don't know how to do as people yet.
The generative AI to me, I'm obsessed with chatty, as we say. But like the image ones are still kind of lackluster to me. I know for a couple weeks on Instagram and Facebook, like everybody was using, what was the one everybody was excited about a couple weeks ago, Danielle?
Was it
That they were
Midjourney?
no, the one where you upload your own Lenza, I think.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. See how like we forgot about it. It's like that was 3 weeks ago. We already like moved on. But it was Lenza. And I was like, okay, this is cool, but it's like, to me, like what I would love to see is so at Black Speakers Network, we're, creating events and stuff like that all the time. So I've deployed GPT to write sales copy, to write scripts, to write event descriptions, to A/B test headlines, to create like content wise, all of that makes sense. So on the tech side, I'm good. On the image side, I would love to be able to be like, hey, make me a flyer for this specific event. And I know even now with Canva, like they have, integrated in some of that image generation, but like the image generation of stuff, like outside of like artistic, like you said, show me a picture of like, baseballs on fire on the moon, like, that's cool. But I'm like, okay, give me like something I could like take to market some type of way. So that's what I think I'm looking for, is like the intersection of those two, the text and the image kind of coming together, and or video. It's like, hey, give me a fully done 30-second marketing video about this particular product with all these, different things done. Like that's what I'm kind of waiting for. Rachel, am I getting close to that, you think? Or is that already out and I just don't know about it?
It's coming. I
Got-
think quicker than we expect. And yeah, I mean, like just a few days ago, I saw a demo from so I'm a nerd. I read these research papers,
Good.
but I saw a demo of image to text, right? And so that's really compelling because then, like my problem is I'm realizing like I really lack the vocabulary to like describe an like art piece that I want. And so then being able to like kind of pull prompts out of images that you really like, and then be able to like, change a couple variables, run it, and then you can imagine getting an image much faster that could be used for like marketing or something.
Yes, speaking my language. We invited you because you're a nerd, Rachel. Absolutely. I
Good.
and I y'all are wearing glasses. I'm wearing contacts right now, just so y'all know. Like I'm in this conversation. Like this is the reason you're here. So you can nerd out on us to the nth degree, and Danielle and I will be perfectly happy. By the way, can you talk a little bit about the work you're doing with the AI exchange, and just kind of how that part got started? Because I think it's a fascinating resource that people need to know about. Um, and yeah, we'd just love to hear the story behind it and what you all are doing.
Yeah, so we're still really young as a company, which I think is kind of indicative of the space. Right now there's just a lot of really exciting companies and products and startups being started because we're just so early in this technology, and we're very much in that same boat. But the idea behind the AI exchange was, I really just have this fundamental belief that AI should be useful for everybody, and that access is really important. And in particular, I care a lot about like small business access, and especially folks who are really excited to adopt this tech, but maybe don't live in Silicon Valley and don't want to spend all their time on Twitter and don't want to read all the research papers. Like, I don't think that's the way to learn this stuff. There needs to be more kind of translation. So that's what we do. We create a lot of educational content. We post on TikTok. We have a newsletter that we send 2 times per week where we try to answer the most pressing questions people have for actually applying AI into their work or business. And then we try to share tutorials as much as possible. I think we're up in the like 20s already, 20 tutorials out there. And we just
Nice.
really started that this last month. So Yeah.
So you're helping companies that may not necessarily be, tech savvy, or, they're just, running their own, individual business, but you're providing like tools and resources for like everyday entrepreneurs to be able to as well as, examples and use cases that they can then, because if I'm running like a barbershop or like a bakery, or I'm running like an online product, something, I might not even be thinking about how
mhm.
to increase efficiency, right marketing cop, like whatever. But then, you know, you are kind of blowing up some of those examples and providing kind of the bridge to that tech. Is that right?
Yeah, because we think it's like first you kind of need to inspire those use cases still, because it's kind of hard, or it's just so new. So it's kind of hard to imagine how AI could help you. And then we try to educate and help people figure out how to actually apply that stuff.
Love it. Love it. All right, Danielle, I'm kicking the ball back to you.
Yeah, so we started talking about the like prompts, and when you were discussing that, I guess form of AI that came to mind was deep fakes. Do you guys know what I'm talking about when I say that?
Yes.
Okay. So, for everyone who's listening or watching or may not know what I'm talking about, so deepfake is basically like a form of using AI to replicate people's faces who may not actually be the specific person. That's how I would best describe it. So, like, the first time I saw this was like what was it, Brad Pitt? It was like a YouTube video of like Brad Pitt and like Paris Hilton or something like that. And it was just, obviously it was not really them, but oh my gosh, it looked so real. It looked like it was actually them on the screen having a conversation. And so I wanted to bring the I wanted to talk about deep fakes because I think earlier on we were talking about like um, ethical issues, like, legal stuff and all of that. And I'm just kind of thinking through like what could the possibilities of like the future look like with having more of like the deep fake stuff widely available to like the general public.
Danielle doesn't want
Because
anybody to steal her face and use
no.
it to use it for their own nefarious.
Yes, like that's what I was thinking about. We're talking about Lenza, and like I feel like Lenza is also like I saw some people like putting prompts for like um what's his name? Tom Holland, like Spider-Man, like doing Spider-Man, just different iterations of like specific people's faces. And I'm just like, wow, this is like getting really realistic looking. And so I think I would love to know, Rachel, what you think about deep fakes and if you have any thoughts about that specifically, because I think there can be a lot of like fear around that, but I also think how it works is also very, very intriguing. So, what are your thoughts on using AI in that way too?
Yeah, I mean, I think um, it's here and it's coming, and we kind of just need to evolve as a society. Like, specifically, the issue with deep fakes, right, is like right now we don't usually trust photos fully because we understand that Photoshop is a thing, but we still trust videos like really, really, deeply. And that's the problem with deep fakes is like people don't, it's not mainstream enough yet that people realize how easy it is to fake videos. And like that technology is also not new. It's been around for a while. I think there's probably a lot more deep fakes out there than people even realize, right?
Yeah,
Um, I've
probably.
also I've also seen that Paris Hilton like those videos. I'm just like, man, this is crazy that you can't even tell. Um, and so, yeah, like I've just heard, really smart folks just say like, hey, like our main goal, and even people who are building these deep fake companies, their main goal is just to make it as mainstream as Photoshop so people understand how easily video can
Mhm.
be faked.
But I
Yeah.
don't even understand like why. So all this other stuff I get. Like I understand the need to have generative text to create content, write articles. I even understand the desire artistically to be able to create, just really whatever type of image. But like, what's the practical, like, should deepfakes even be legal? Like, I don't understand the use case of that. Like, at what point would I need to superimpose somebody else's face and voice onto something to do something else. Like why do we even need that?
I've seen something similar used from like a marketing context. So like how I think about it is like maybe I think about people who may be like visually impaired or even like um hearing impaired. Like I'm kind of thinking about it of like how could it be beneficial from like a service type of standpoint for people. I've seen something similar used for like marketing content. So like let's say a video pops up and you think you're speaking to a real person who's like, hey, welcome, blah, 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 blah. And it's actually like an AI that looks like a real person. That
I
sounds like
get
a real
that.
person.
But that doesn't. But deep fake, because what you're saying, that part I understand. Like,
But they
hey, let's
got the
get a.
facial features from a real person, though.
But it shouldn't be. But I don't think a individual company should just be able to be like, oh, let's put Oprah's like voice over our
Mm-hmm.
pro. Like that's to me is the not the AI talking, is the projecting it as somebody else. Like, why would we
Mm-hmm.
even like? I know what situation would that we would ever need to do that.
I mean, I think the like what you're talking about, which I think we're going to start having a lot more of these conversations, we're going to have to, is who owns the likeness of a person, and like that is the person, like Oprah owns the identity of Oprah, right? And so then like to have technology go out there and like use AI to like mimic um, saying like, hey, this is like her voice, or we're going to have her face on stuff. I mean, there are a lot of demos out there in the wild right now that use famous people without those famous people's permission, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And so because I don't know if legally, like obviously she probably owns the name, to carry the Oprah example, but does she own, like, do you, and I guess this is a whole thing in like sports and everything, like name, image, and likeness, I believe in NIL. But like, do we actually own our
Our
um
faces.
yeah, in that way, like once we put it, because that was the controversy I thought with Lenza, which was like, hey, I'm gonna download this app, and then all the scroll past all the stuff we never read, and then we accept. What are we accepting? Are we accepting that we have we already as a society already opted into signing off on our likenesses because we've used some of these other tools? Like this just seems like a massive legal gray area,
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I
Yeah, I'm not
haven't
putting
dug
you on the
into
hook for
that
that,
stuff.
Rachel.
But I do think, I mean, one other use case I'll throw out there for the deep fakes is something that we're thinking about with the AI exchange. Is like right now, it's just the two of us creating content, me and my sister, and that's a ton of work for two people. And so we've been using AI to automate a ton of our internal operations, how we do research, how we do brainstorming for content, how we repurpose content, etc. But I see a pretty good chance in the future that we'll have videos that maybe might be using my face, but I didn't actually do it. Maybe my sister actually recorded it, right? And but she doesn't really want to have her face out there in the same regard. So maybe we would use a deep fake, right, to superimpose on top of that. I don't think the technology is totally there. And then my point of view is you always need to disclose any of the usage of that stuff to be, very transparent. But I think there's actually a lot of kind of this efficiency around content creation or kind of the way we work that's going to really be influenced by being able to use these tools.
Now that part makes a lot of sense to me. I'm glad you brought that up because I was like, because like now, even when I'm like showing up for stuff at Black Speakers Network, like, or if I'm working on like an event or I'm doing something, like anytime that I find myself having to do a process like over and over again, I'm like, oh, how can I automate this? How can I systematize it? How can we hook it up to Zapier? Like, how can we just like keep it rolling?
Hmm.
And it'd be so cool to be like, have like, somebody reaches out and just have like these AI responses. But Danielle's actually really good at this, as you know, like recording like those Loom videos and stuff like that. But how personalized would it be? And how cool would it be if it was like, oh, hey, you're having trouble with this? Here's how you do it. And then actually use that person's name, and then it'd be like hyper customized, but I'm off on a beach somewhere like chilling and I have no
Hmm.
idea that this customer service exchange is even happening. Now I do like that idea. So
Yeah. Or
thank you,
imagine
Rachel.
like you're in sales calls and you have you're not even really necessarily talking to a person. You're talking to like an AI representation of a person. I don't know. It's kind of
Ooh,
crazy.
yeah. Can I tell you about this thing I heard? Maybe you've seen it too, Rachel. I forget the name of it. And maybe you see this too, Danielle. Like now there's because a lot of customer service, like if you call like a cell phone company or cable or whatever, they have their own AI and they will just kind of use it as much as possible in order to keep a live person from getting in because it's more expensive. But like now they have AI that you could deploy out on your behalf to go talk to other AI in order to like fight like parking tickets or stuff. Like, have you seen you know what I'm talking about? Like, yeah, like they have it now where it's like, hey, if you're trying to fight like if you're trying to get like a lower cable bill or if you're trying to quit, like it'll call and it's trained to interact with that other company's AI to get a
Mhm.
specific result and it'll push it until it can no longer, I guess, get it or whatever.
That is
Yeah, my
amazing.
my friends built a an AI chatbot that you could text, and it would call a pizzeria, order a pizza, pay for it, and then pizza gets delivered to your door. They built that at a hackathon, and I was just like, this is crazy that we are already there with this technology.
I love it. I love it. I know we're kind of tailing into the conversation. So Danielle, I'm gonna kick it back to you for maybe like a final question, and then I'll think about like a final question, and then Rachel will give you an opportunity to share final thoughts around the topic as we wrap up. Does that sound good?
Sounds
So
Yes.
good.
yes, Danielle, I'll
So,
take it.
Rachel, one final question that I have for you for anyone who is interested to learn more about like just getting started with AI, since it is something that is becoming a lot more popular and people are becoming more aware of it now. I'm sure there's a lot to learn about AI, especially like where we are now and where we're going to. So, like, what would you recommend could be a great first step for someone who is wanting to learn more and who is interested to see how they can utilize it more, maybe in their business or even like in their day-to-day experiences?
Yeah, I mean, my shameless plug is our newsletter. We
Absolutely.
and you can access the whole archive of every newsletter. We picked a platform that does that, which is super nice because you can really go pretty deep and see a huge variety of use cases. But outside of that, I when I think about and talk to business owners, especially small business owners, the recurring trend that pops up is, I mean, you just need to spend time with the tools, right? So it's like if you've used ChatGPT and maybe you tried a couple of questions and you didn't get great responses, and you're like, yeah, I don't really get this whole AI thing. Like, I really invite people to go and try it again, try to spend a little bit of time with it, maybe on a weekly basis, and just try to see what it can help with, because I think each person kind of needs to go a little bit through their own journey of figuring out how it can be applied. And then once you find things that work well for you, I think the combination of AI and some of these automation tools, like we talked about Zapier earlier, those two together, like when you spend the time to learn both of them, you're going to unlock so much more, to where I kind of have this like tagline where I'm like, let's just all work less. Like, I think that's actually where we're
Facts.
headed, right? And so if you
Yes.
learn AI and automations, you can start to figure out, okay, how do I maybe not need to do all that, mundane work and tasks. So that's how I would think about it.
I love that. Yeah, Danielle and I, every conversation we have, we're consistently trying to figure out how to do more with less, make more money with less time, make a bigger impact with less, sweat equity and stuff like that. And, I think here on the Future is Fun podcast, we're always kind of looking out at, what's going to actually bring that into reality because, um, we can, productivity doesn't just mean, hey, get up and do more work. It just means increasing the output, the result of the work that's, the effort that's going in. And so, I'm all about that. So we will be adopting that that mantra, Rachel. You have some loyal devotees as it relates to that. The thing I want to ask you as we close up the conversation is like, what are you most excited about? Like, with the future of AI? Like, it could be this year, 10 years out, 20 years out, just from where you sit um, within the AI exchange. And just as a data scientist, as a user, as a fellow nerd, like what is your like what gets you excited that may be here yet, or it may be around the horizon, but I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, one of the things that excites me most is honestly this idea of just working less. Like, and I think just as a concept, like, we all do so much mundane work. And I find like no matter who I talk to, even if at first they say, no, I don't do a lot of like manual tasks, like when you really look at it, we all do so much manual mundane work. And and for me, I always have the best ideas when I'm on vacation, or I'm taking a walk through the park. And so, how much more creativity, how many harder problems could we be solving in the world if we all just had to do like way less mundane work? That gets me really excited. Yeah, I'd love to live in a future where that's true. And I think we're headed there.
Yeah, that I want to join you in that future because I love Zapier. If anybody's from Zapier listening, we are looking for sponsors, so that is a very easy like tie-in. Also from OpenAI as well, but that is good stuff. But Rachel, thank you so much for this conversation. Danielle and I. We're going to keep it going. In fact, if you're listening to this in the comments, we would love to know, what's been your experience with AI? Like, have you tried Chat GPT? Have you tried Lenza? Have you tried some of the other tools that we talked about? Let us know in the comments just what your experience has been, and if you're excited about the future of AI like we are. But yeah, Danielle, any final thoughts before we wrap?
Yes, I just want to say that I'm actually on the AI Exchange newsletter, and man, it is top notch. So anyone who is listening or watching, definitely check that out. We'll include the information in the show notes for this episode. But ooh, yes, it's so good. It's so good. Just wanted to share that
Thank
as
you so
well.
much.
Yeah.
I
We
love a good
appreciate it.
newsletter.
Yes.
It's a like resource, like stuff that's like packed with value, and you just kind of like it's super digestible and consumable. Like you're doing an amazing job, Rachel.
Yes.
So thanks again for joining us on the Future is Fun podcast. Rachel, we definitely would love to have you back at some point to go deeper into some of these topics, like and particularly, I feel like this is one of those things, like things move so quickly, like even 6 months from now, it'll be some new and fun, exciting conversations to be had. So thank you again. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. This was a blast.
Yes.
All
Thank
right, guys,
you.
we will see you next time. Danielle and I are still workshopping like a sign off phrase, so we don't have it yet. But once we do, this is episode 3. But check us out at episode 10. We'll have a killer sign off phrase. But we'll see you next time. Did we come up with one last time? I thought we had
You
like a
didn't
future.
like my idea.
I thought yours was like
Too corny or something.
nah. You normally you
It
have
was
good
like,
ideas.
see you in the future.
Well, that's literally what they're going to do. But we will see you in the future. All right, we're out.